You're toxic.
You're toxic.
You're toxic.
Every morning, you wake up and put on a mask. Not a physical one, but a carefully crafted version of yourself that hides all the parts you think are unacceptable. Your anger, your selfishness, those dark thoughts you're ashamed of. You've been told your whole life that hiding these things keeps you safe. But what if I told you that mask is actually making you a target? Carl Jung discovered something shocking. There's a secret that makes certain people completely untouchable to toxic individuals. These people don't build walls or put up defenses. They don't try harder to be perfect. Instead, they do something that seems dangerous but actually makes them invisible to predators. They embrace the very parts of themselves that others try to hide. Here's what we're going to explore. Jung found that hidden inside what you call your dark side, your anger, your selfishness, even your so-called negative thoughts, lies a power that toxic people cannot touch. But most people never access this power because they're too busy trying to be good. I know that sounds backwards, but by the end of this journey, you'll discover exactly how to tap into this hidden strength. You'll learn the specific process Jung outlined for turning your biggest weaknesses into your greatest protection. So as you think about that mask you put on this morning, ask yourself, what if the very thing you're hiding is actually the key to making toxic people avoid you completely? Because once you master Jung's secret about the human shadow, you'll never need that mask again. You know that person who's always super nice, always agreeing with everyone, and never seems to have any problems? The one who never gets upset, never says no, and always looks perfect? I used to be that person. I remember sitting in meetings, nodding along to ideas I completely disagreed with because I was terrified of being seen as difficult. I'd smile when people made jokes that weren't funny, laugh when comments hurt my feelings, and say yes to every request even when I was drowning in work. Here's what Carl Jung figured out that will shock you. That person is the easiest target for bullies, manipulators, and toxic people. Here's why. Underneath that perfect act lives something Jung called your shadow. Now, before you think this sounds weird, listen to this. Your shadow isn't just the bad stuff about you. It's also your strength, your creativity, your real voice, your ability to stand up for yourself, your anger when someone treats you badly, your big dreams, basically everything that makes you who you really are. But here's the problem. You've been taught to hide all of this away like it's something terrible. Think about it. When you were a kid, you learned which parts of yourself got you praise and which parts got you in trouble. Your boldness? Don't be bossy. Your wild creativity? Sit still and be quiet. Your real feelings? Good girls don't get angry. Real men don't cry. I learned this lesson early. At 7 years old, I got excited about a science project and interrupted my teacher to share an idea. Instead of encouragement, I got a sharp, "Wait your turn," in front of the whole class. From that day, I learned that my enthusiasm was too much, so I buried it. So you split yourself in two. You made one version of yourself that everyone would like, and you buried everything else deep inside. But here's what nobody told you. Those buried feelings don't just go away. They turn into habits that control you without you knowing it. They show up as always trying to please people, never standing up for yourself, that weird stress you can't explain, and that feeling like something important is missing from your life. For me, it showed up as chronic anxiety, saying sorry for things that weren't my fault, and attracting the worst kinds of people, the ones who sensed I wouldn't fight back. And toxic people? They can spot this split in you right away. They see someone who's cut off from their own strength, their own boundaries, their own truth. Someone who's so busy trying to look good that they've forgotten who they really are. What if I told you that every quality you've been hiding, even the ones you think are bad, is exactly what you need to protect yourself from toxic people? That anger you've been pushing down, that's your alarm system trying to work. That selfishness you feel guilty about, that's your survival instinct. That darkness you're scared of, that's often your lost power waiting for you to take it back. Remember that perfect mask you put on every day? Jung discovered something amazing. Wearing that mask is exactly what makes you weak, because when you reject parts of yourself, You're basically sending out signals that tell toxic people exactly where to hurt you. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how toxic people read these hidden signals like a map to your weaknesses, and how to become so uninteresting to them that they'll leave you alone. You know what's scary? Toxic people don't see you the way your friends do. While your friends see your kindness and how much you care, toxic people see something totally different. They see weakness. They see someone they can control. They see a hurt animal trying to hide that it's been wounded. Let me tell you about Sarah. She was this successful woman who always looked perfect, but she had this one thing she did. Whenever someone said anything bad about her work, even a tiny comment, her shoulders would get tight and she'd start explaining herself over and over. She didn't even know she was doing it, but her mean boss, he saw it right away. That little reaction told him everything. Sarah was desperate for people to like her. Here's what Jung figured out that most people never realize. When you split yourself in half and hide your real self, you don't just bury your strength, you accidentally send out signals that show exactly where you're weak. Think about it like this. You know how hurt animals in the wild accidentally show predators they're easy to catch? They walk differently, they act scared, they hide in certain ways. Humans do the exact same thing, but with feelings. Remember that perfect mask we talked about? Well, keeping that mask on all the time takes a lot of energy. And that energy has to come out somewhere. It shows up as that quick flash of fear in your eyes when someone raises their voice. The way you say sorry when someone else bumps into you. How you laugh too hard at jokes that aren't funny. The way you freeze up when someone asks what you want. These aren't just weird habits. These are automatic reactions that come from the parts of yourself you've been hiding. And toxic people? They've learned to spot these reactions like a detective looking for clues. I learned this the hard way when I met someone who seemed super interested in everything about me. He'd ask me deep questions, remember things I told him, make me feel special in a way no one ever had. But what I didn't know was that he wasn't trying to know me. He was figuring out exactly how to hurt me. Every time I told him about feeling ignored as a kid, he'd get this look in his eyes. When I shared that I was scared of being left alone, he'd move closer. When I talked about wanting to feel important, he'd nod like he totally understood. I thought he was falling for me. Really, he was learning exactly how to control me. This is what experts call emotional baiting. Toxic people find your hidden needs, that need to feel good enough that you buried, that need to feel important that you were told was selfish, that need to feel safe that you learned to ignore, and they feed those needs just enough to trap you. But here's what will shock you. They're not reading your mind. They're reading the parts of you that you rejected. Those parts you pushed away, they're still inside you, still wanting what they always wanted. And when you don't give those parts what they need, they'll take it from anyone who offers it. That's why that smooth talker at work knows exactly what to say to get you to stay late again. That's why your drama-filled friend knows exactly which buttons to push to get you to drop everything and help them. That's why you keep meeting the same type of person over and over. It's not bad luck. It's not chance. You're accidentally sending out a signal that says, I'm cut off from my own strength, my own limits, my own truth. And certain people know exactly how to find that signal. But what if I told you that the moment you stop hiding from those parts of yourself, the moment you take back that buried strength, these people can't see you anymore? Not because you put up walls, but because you stop sending out the signals they're looking for. In fact, there's something even more amazing happening that most people completely miss. Here's the part that's going to hurt, but you need to hear it. You're not just attracting toxic people by accident. You're actually calling them into your life without even knowing it. I know that sounds crazy. I know it sounds like I'm blaming you for other people's bad behavior. But stick with me because understanding this one thing will set you free. Let me tell you about when I finally saw this pattern in my own life. I was constantly complaining about how people always took advantage of me. Why do I keep meeting these selfish people who only care about themselves? I'd ask my friends. It's like they see doormat written on my forehead. But then my sister said something that stopped me cold. When was the last time you actually said no to someone? When was the last time you put your own needs first? I started paying attention. At work, I'd stay late to help everyone else with their projects while my own work suffered. I'd lend money to friends who never paid me back. I'd cancel my own plans the moment someone needed something from me. I'd even let people cut in front of me in line because I was too scared to speak up. Then I'd get angry when people treated me like I didn't matter. This is what Jung called throwing your problems onto other people, and it's one of the most powerful things that happens in relationships. You take the parts of yourself that you can't handle, and you unconsciously put them onto other people. Then you fight those people for having the exact qualities you're running away from in yourself. I wasn't attracting selfish people because I was too giving. I was attracting them because I had completely buried my own ability to be selfish, to put myself first when I needed to, and then I blamed them for doing what I was too scared to do. Think about it. Have you ever noticed that the person who's always complaining about drama somehow always has drama in their life? The person who says they hate gossips always seems to know everyone's business? The person who can't stand selfish people somehow always ends up giving and giving until they're burnt out? It's not a coincidence. It's throwing your stuff onto other people. Here's how it works. That part of yourself you buried, remember your hidden self from earlier? Doesn't just disappear. It becomes like a magnet. You unconsciously look for people who will act out those buried parts for you so you can experience them without having to own them. If you buried your anger, you'll attract angry people so you can feel powerful by being the calm one. If you buried your neediness, you'll attract needy people so you can feel strong by being the helper. If you bury your selfishness, you'll attract selfish people so you can feel good by being the giving one. But here's the trap. What you fight against gets stronger. Jung figured out that the more you fight against something outside yourself, the more it shows up in your life. Because you're not actually fighting the other person, you're fighting the part of yourself you won't accept. The breakthrough came when I realized I was terrified of my own selfishness. I'd grown up being told that putting myself first was bad, that good people always sacrifice for others. So I buried that part of myself so deep that I couldn't even access it when I needed it. But by attracting selfish people, I could experience that energy without having to own it. I could feel powerful and superior by being the selfless victim while they acted out the selfishness I was too scared to embrace. This is why you keep having the same fights with different people. Why do the same problems follow you from job to job and relationship to relationship? You're not unlucky. You're unconsciously creating the same patterns because you're trying to fix something inside yourself by fighting it outside yourself. But here's what will shock you. The moment you stop throwing your problems onto others and start owning those buried parts of yourself, everything changes. When I finally learned to say no, to put my needs first sometimes, to be selfish when I needed to be, the people who used to take advantage of me suddenly lost interest. It's like you were walking around with a giant sign saying, "Please come act out my hidden parts so I can fight you," instead of facing myself. And the moment you take that sign down, well, that's when something amazing happens that most people never get to experience. So how do you actually stop this cycle? How do you take back those buried parts of yourself and become the kind of person toxic people naturally avoid? The answer is what Jung called bringing your hidden parts back together. But don't let that sound scary. What it really means is having the guts to face the parts of yourself you've been running from your whole life. I remember the exact moment I decided to stop running. I was 32, standing in my kitchen at 2 a.m., stress eating leftover pizza after spending 3 hours on the phone with my friend Mike. Again. He'd called freaking out because his girlfriend broke up with him for the 4th time this year. And like always, I dropped everything to be his emotional support. But this time, something clicked. As I stood there exhausted and angry, I realized I wasn't mad at Mike. I was mad at myself. Because deep down, I knew I loved being needed. I loved being the stable one, the wise friend, the reliable guy. It made me feel important, but I'd never admitted that to myself. That's when I started asking myself the tough questions. What if my anger isn't something terrible that needs to be hidden? What if my neediness isn't shameful but just me wanting to feel connected? What if my selfishness isn't evil but actually my way of trying to survive. Here's what I learned. The process of taking back your hidden parts happens in steps, and each step feels impossible until you get through it. First comes seeing it. You have to catch yourself in the act of putting your problems onto other people. When you find yourself saying, "Why do they always?" or "I can't believe he..." Stop. Ask yourself, what part of me am I seeing in them that I don't want to admit? I started keeping track on my phone. Every time I got annoyed with someone, I'd make a note. Mike is so needy and dramatic. Then I'd force myself to ask, how am I being needy and dramatic? At first, I'd get super angry at the question, but slowly I started seeing the patterns. The second step is accepting it, and this is where most people give up. Because accepting your hidden parts doesn't mean you like them. It means you stop pretending they don't exist. When I finally admitted that yes, I could be needy, yes, I loved being the center of attention when someone had a crisis, yes, I was hooked on feeling important, it felt like everything I thought I was just fell apart. But here's what Jung understood that most people miss. You're not becoming these things. You already are these things. You've just been letting other people act them out for you. The third step is what Jung called talking to yourself. You actually start having conversations with these buried parts of yourself like they're real people. I know it sounds weird, but stick with me. I remember one morning I was writing in my journal and I wrote, "Why do I keep attracting needy people?" And then I imagined my own neediness as this lonely kid sitting in the corner. I asked him, "What do you actually want?" And the answer came right away. "I want to matter. I want to know that I'm important to someone." That hit me hard. My neediness wasn't weakness. It was my heart trying to feel valued. My love of drama wasn't crazy. It was my way of feeling alive and needed. Every single bad trait had something good hidden inside it. But here's the most important part. Putting yourself back together doesn't mean you become perfect. It means you become complete. When you own your neediness, you don't become clingy. You become someone who can admit when they need connection without feeling ashamed. When you own your love of drama, you don't become chaos. You become someone who can bring energy and excitement to life. I started noticing changes right away. The next time Mike called at midnight with another crisis, I said, "Hey man, I care about you, but I'm going to bed. Let's talk tomorrow when we can both think clearly." He was shocked. He actually said, But who's going to help me figure this out? My needy coworker who always dumped her problems on me during lunch? I started saying, "That sounds really hard. Have you thought about talking to someone professional about this?" She stopped coming to me because I wasn't feeding her need for endless talking anymore. The dramatic friend who always had emergencies right when I had something important to do? She started calling other people, not because I was mean to her, but because I wasn't available to play my old role of the crisis helper anymore. Remember that perfect mask you used to wear? That "I'm so selfless and giving" mask that made you such an easy target? Well, putting yourself back together doesn't mean you throw the mask away. It means you don't need it anymore. Because when you own all parts of yourself, the generous and the selfish, the strong and the needy, the calm and the dramatic, you become rock solid. You stop being someone who needs to prove they're good. You stop being someone who's scared of being seen as flawed. You just become someone who is, fully, completely, for real. And that's when something amazing happens that changes everything. Here's what nobody prepared me for. When you put yourself back together, you don't just change how you act, you change how you feel to other people. It's like you start giving off a completely different energy that toxic people can sense from across the room. 6 months after I started owning my hidden parts, something weird happened at work. There was this guy, Marcus, who had been the office energy sucker for years. He'd corner people by the coffee machine, dump his personal drama on anyone who'd listen, and somehow always managed to make every conversation about his problems. But when he tried his usual thing on me, something was different. I wasn't doing anything big. I wasn't being rude or putting up walls. I just stood there fully present, completely comfortable with who I was. And after about 30 seconds, he just stopped talking. He looked confused, mumbled something about needing to get back to work, and walked away. My coworker Sarah, who saw the whole thing, came over and said, "What did you do to Marcus? He looked like he hit an invisible wall." That's when I understood what Jung meant about staying emotionally calm. When you're not fighting against parts of yourself anymore, you stop being reactive. You're not trying to prove you're good. You're not afraid of being seen as bad. You're not desperate for approval or scared of rejection. You just are. And toxic people, they have no idea what to do with that. Think about it. Remember how we talked about those signals you were unconsciously sending out? Well, those signals came from your inner war. The fight between who you thought you should be and who you actually are. When that fight ends, the signals stop. It's like you were walking around with a giant neon sign flashing, "I'm disconnected from my power, please come control me." And suddenly the sign goes dark. I started noticing this everywhere. The drama-loving friend who used to call me with every crisis, she started calling less and less. When I asked her why, she said, "I don't know, you just seem different. Like you don't get as caught up in my problems anymore." She was right. I cared about her, but I wasn't feeding off her drama to feel important anymore. Without that hidden need being triggered, I could just be there without getting sucked in. The manipulative guy from my gym who used to love getting me upset with his backhanded compliments, one day he tried his usual, "You're pretty good at those exercises," for a beginner thing. I just smiled and said, "Thanks," and kept working out. He looked so confused. He tried a few more times over the next weeks, but when I didn't react the way he expected, he just stopped bothering me entirely. Here's what I learned. Toxic people aren't attracted to you personally. They're attracted to your unconscious habits. They're looking for someone who's cut off from their own power, their own boundaries, their own truth. Someone who needs other people's approval to feel okay about themselves. But when you own all parts of yourself, when you've brought your hidden pieces back together, you become what Jung called complete on the inside. You don't need other people to finish you or make you feel whole because you already are whole. And that's incredibly boring to toxic people. Think about a predator in the wild. They don't go after the strong, centered animals. They go after the ones that are limping, the ones that are separated from the group, the ones that are sending out "help me" signals. When you're internally whole, you stop sending out those "help me" signals. You stop being the wounded animal that attracts predators. You become like a healthy lion, not aggressive, not defensive, just completely confident in your own skin. I remember the exact moment I felt this shift fully. I was at a party, and this woman I'd never met started doing what I now recognize as emotional testing, making little mean comments to see how I'd react, testing my limits, trying to get me upset. 6 months earlier, I would have either gotten defensive or tried harder to win her approval. But this time, I felt this strange sense of calm. I wasn't triggered. I wasn't reactive. I just looked at her with real curiosity, like I was watching an interesting animal at a zoo. She kept trying harder, but I stayed neutral. Not cold, not mean, just completely unaffected. And after a few minutes, she just walked away. She literally had nothing to work with. That's when I realized the perfect mask you used to wear, you don't need it anymore because you're not hiding anything. The energy you used to spend managing your image, you get to keep it. The fear you used to have about people seeing the real you, it's gone because the real you is finally put back together and whole. And here's the beautiful twist. The very thing you thought made you weak, owning your darkness, accepting your flaws, embracing your hidden parts, actually makes you unbreakable. Remember that mask you put on this morning? The one you thought was keeping you safe? Now you know the truth. That mask wasn't protecting you from toxic people. It was advertising exactly where they could hurt you. Every time you hid your anger, your selfishness, your darkness, you were essentially putting up a giant sign that said, "Here are my weaknesses. Come exploit them." But Jung's secret revealed the stunning reversal. The very parts of yourself you were hiding weren't your vulnerability. They were your power. Your integrated darkness doesn't make you dangerous to good people. It makes you uninteresting to toxic ones. This changes everything about how you move through the world. You're no longer someone who needs to perform perfection to stay safe. You're someone who has made peace with every part of themselves, and that makes you untouchable. Think about it. When you're not hiding anything, there's nothing for predators to exploit. When you own your whole self, you become energetically complete. This is why Jung called shadow integration the path to true freedom. So here's a question that only makes sense now that you've completed this journey. If you no longer need to hide from your own darkness, what else in your life have you been running from that might actually be your greatest strength? Take a moment to think about that. Because the person who started watching this video and the person you are right now, they're not the same. If you're ready to dive deeper into Jung's revolutionary insights and continue expanding your understanding of human psychology, subscribe now. Because this is just the beginning of what happens when you stop hiding from yourself. The circle is complete, but the journey has just begun.